When my mother handed me a single black trash bag on the night of my 18th birthday and shoved me out into the pouring rain, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're the strong one, Maya. You'll be fine. Your sister needs the room." They didn't just throw me away to give my older sister my bedroom. They framed me for a hit-and-run accident my sister committed, threatening to call the police if I didn't take the fall and leave quietly. For 6 years, I was completely erased. No phone calls, no holidays, no sign that I ever existed. But their smirks completely vanished 6 years later when my mother called me, weeping hysterically, begging me to save my sister from total bankruptcy and prison. She thought she was calling a desperate, broken runaway. What she didn't know was that I had spent those 6 years building a forensic auditing firm, and the exact company my sister was trying to liquidate was a subsidiary I secretly owned. Before we get into how I turned their ultimate betrayal into their absolute undoing, follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story travels. My name is Maya Vance, and at 28 years old, I've learned that being labeled the strong one is just a toxic excuse people use to abuse you without feeling guilty. For as long as I can remember, my household operated under a brutal double standard. My older sister, Chloe, was the fragile princess who needed constant protection, while I was expected to shoulder every storm without making a sound. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened on the night of my 18th birthday. I wasn't blowing out candles or opening presents. I was standing in our living room while my parents shoved a single black trash bag into my chest. Just 2 hours earlier, Chloe had come home hysterically sobbing, her hands shaking as she confessed to clipping a parked luxury sedan on the main avenue after leaving a party where she had been drinking. She was 19, already on academic probation, and facing potential legal fallout. Instead of holding her accountable, my parents panicked. They looked at her tear-stained face, then turned their cold, calculating eyes onto me. My father grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to leave bruises. "Chloe's future will be completely ruined if this goes on her record," he spat, his voice devoid of any warmth. "You're taking the blame, Maya. You're going to tell the police you were driving." When I backed away in sheer horror, refusing to lie for a hit and run, my mother's face twisted into pure malice. She didn't reason with me. She unzipped my closet, stuffed a few random clothes into a trash bag, and dragged me toward the front door. "If you won't protect this family, you don't belong in it," my mother sneered, shoving me hard onto the wet concrete porch as cold rain instantly soaked through my shirt. My sister stood behind them in the warm hallway, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue, a subtle, victorious smirk playing on her lips as she watched my world fall apart. I looked at my parents, begging them with my eyes to stop this madness, but my mother just closed the heavy wooden door slightly, leaving only a tiny crack. She looked me dead in the eye and uttered the words that would burn into my soul forever. "You're the strong one, Maya. You'll be fine. Your sister needs the room anyway." The heavy oak door slammed shut, and the deadbolt clicked into place with a sound that shattered whatever was left of my heart. I stood under the pouring rain, clutching a flimsy plastic bag containing my entire life. I had $0, no college fund, and a family that had just erased my existence to shield a golden child. I didn't scream. I didn't drop to my knees and weep on their doorstep. Instead, a freezing, crystalline clarity washed over me. The eager-to-please daughter died right there on that wet pavement. I wiped the rain from my face, turned my back on that house, and walked 2 miles to the nearest Greyhound bus station. Using the last $40 I had hidden in my shoe, I bought a one-way ticket to the farthest city on the schedule. As the bus rumbled down the highway into the dark night, I pulled out my phone. I didn't send a dramatic text or demand an explanation. I permanently blocked my mother, my father, and Chloe. I deleted my social accounts and severed every tie. I was completely on my own, but as I looked out at the rain-streaked window, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never, ever beg for their love again. Arriving in a sprawling, unfamiliar city with $40 and a trash bag full of clothes wasn't a tragedy. It was the crucible that forged my real identity. I rented a tiny, sunless basement room, took a graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner, and spent my mornings studying at the public library. I quickly learned that the corporate world was filled with arrogant executives who thought they could hide behind complex paperwork and shell accounts. I decided to master the one language they couldn't fake: forensic accounting. For 6 long, grueling years, I worked 16-hour days. While other people my age were out partying, I was dissecting corporate ledgers, tracking fraudulent transactions, and earning my degree through relentless night courses. My sharp analytical mind and refusal to back down caught the attention of an elite investment firm. By 26, I had launched my own private firm, Vance Global Investments, specializing in corporate restructuring and distress asset acquisition. I transformed from the discardable girl on the porch into a polished, wealthy executive running an empire from a high-rise office. I never looked back at my past, completely unaware that while I was quietly building a fortune, cosmic justice was brewing 300 miles away. Without my stabilizing presence to blame for their problems, my parents' household dynamic began to implode under the weight of their own golden child. Chloe, freed from any accountability, grew increasingly reckless. She dropped out of 2 different colleges, maxed out endless high-limit credit cards, and convinced my parents to pour their entire retirement savings into funding her lavish, luxury fashion boutique. My parents, still desperately obsessed with maintaining the illusion of Chloe's perfection, blindly handed over every dime. Predictably, Chloe had zero business sense. She used the company account as her personal piggy bank, spending tens of thousands on influencer trips, designer bags, and luxury cars while neglecting supplier invoices and corporate taxes. Within 3 years, her boutique was drowning in massive supply chain defaults and predatory loans. Desperate to save her from total bankruptcy, my father pledged their family home as secondary collateral to secure a massive commercial credit line from a major regional finance group. What my parents and Chloe didn't know, what they couldn't possibly fathom in their wildest dreams, was the underlying architecture of that regional finance group. 3 months before their loan was approved, my firm, Vance Global Investments, had quietly bought out the parent entity, holding that exact commercial credit portfolio. Every single asset, every debt obligation, and every property deed my family had pledged was now sitting on my desk. They thought they were dealing with an anonymous corporate bank they could easily manipulate. They had no idea that the very ground they walked on was owned by the daughter they had thrown out into the rain 6 years ago. 6 years of total silence can make you forget the sound of the voices that used to break you. But on a rainy Tuesday morning, my private line buzzed. The caller ID showed an unlisted number, but when I answered, a familiar, hysterical weeping pierced through the speaker. It was my mother. She didn't ask if I was alive. She didn't offer a single word of apology for the night she threw me into the rain. Instead, her voice trembled with a frantic, breathy desperation as she gasped, "Maya? Oh God, Maya. Is that really you? Your sister needs you. Chloe is in terrible trouble, and you're the only one who can save us." It took everything in me not to laugh right into the microphone. The absolute audacity was breathtaking. She explained that Chloe's luxury boutique was facing an immediate, catastrophic foreclosure. A high-profile commercial finance group was threatening to seize the store's inventory and foreclose on my parents' house by the end of the week due to defaulted loan terms. My mother didn't know I owned that finance group. She assumed I was still a simple, quiet girl working some low-level office job who happened to have a decent credit score. She invited me to an ultra-exclusive 5-star steakhouse downtown under the fake pretense of reconnecting as a family. I accepted the invitation, dressing in a sharp, custom-tailored charcoal suit, styling my hair flawlessly, and carrying myself with the effortless authority of a corporate titan. When I walked into the private dining room of the restaurant, my parents and Chloe were already seated, pouring expensive champagne they clearly couldn't afford. The moment Chloe looked up and saw me, her eyes scanned my tailored suit with bitter suspicion. She didn't look remorseful. She looked like the same arrogant bully who had smirked on the porch 6 years ago. She let out a fake, patronizing laugh and sneered, "Look who decided to show up. Did you rent that suit just to pretend you're doing well, Maya? You always were so desperate for attention." My mother kicked Chloe under the table, forcing a tight, synthetic smile as she gestured for me to sit. Maya, honey, let's put the past behind us, my mother cooed, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. Family sacrifices for family. Chloe's business is having a tiny, temporary accounting hiccup, and the bank is being unreasonable. We need you to step up as the strong sister and co-sign a $200,000 emergency corporate loan guarantee tonight. My father slid a thick stack of legal papers across the white tablecloth toward me, along with a pen. We've already filled out your personal details, he said, his tone shifting into that familiar, demand-driven entitlement. All you have to do is sign your name as the secondary guarantor. It's your duty as a daughter to fix this for your sister. I looked at the documents, then at Chloe's smug, expectant face. They genuinely believed they had backed me into a corner. They thought they could manipulate my childhood trauma and force me to absorb Chloe's ruinous debts. They had no idea that by sliding those legal papers across the table, they were walking straight into the trap I had built for them. I didn't reach for the pen. Instead, I picked up the legal document, casually flipping through the pages as the silence at our table grew suffocatingly heavy. Chloe crossed her arms, letting out an annoyed, impatient sigh. Just sign it, Maya, she snapped, her tone dripping with condescension. It's not like you have anything better to do with your life. You owe us for taking you in after you proved how irresponsible you were as a teenager. My mother nodded in agreement, leaning forward with a sharp, demanding glare. Your sister's reputation is on the line, Maya. Stop being so bitter and selfish. We raised you to care about this family. I looked up from the pages and let out a soft, low chuckle that instantly froze the air in the room. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a cold, echoing sound of pure, unadulterated irony. My father's jaw clenched tightly, his face flushing a dangerous shade of red. What on earth is so funny? He barked, slamming his hand onto the table. Do you have any idea how serious this situation is? Oh, I understand the gravity perfectly, Dad, I said, my voice steady, smooth, and echoing clearly across the private dining room. What I find hilarious is that 6 years ago, you threw me out into the freezing rain with a trash bag, telling me I was the strong one who would be fine, while you shielded Chloe from her own reckless hit and run. And now, after 6 years of pretending I don't exist, you crawl back to me, demanding that this strong sister pay for Chloe's absolute incompetence. Chloe scoffed, tossing her hair back. You're delusional, Maya. We came here to give you a chance to redeem yourself. Without this signature, the bank forecloses on Mom and Dad's house by Friday. That's where you're wrong, Chloe, I replied smoothly. I reached into my leather briefcase, pulled out a sleek, gold-embossed manila folder, and dropped it right over the remains of their dinner plates. The bank isn't foreclosing on Mom and Dad's house by Friday. I am. My mother gasped, her eyes widening in sheer confusion. What are you talking about? She stammered, her voice cracking. I opened the folder, revealing certified corporate registry deeds and loan transfer documentation bearing the official seal of Vance Global Investments. 3 months ago, my firm acquired the distressed debt portfolio of your regional finance group, I explained, leaning back with a calm, dangerous smile. I am the sole owner, founder, and CEO of the parent company holding Chloe's commercial leases, her vendor debt, and the secondary mortgage on your family home. The room went dead, terrifyingly silent. The color completely drained from my father's face, leaving him looking sickly and pale. Chloe sat frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water as she stared at my name stamped across the corporate executive lines. You see, I continued, looking my sister dead in the eyes, while you were spending company money on luxury vacations and fake influencer status, my legal team was performing a forensic audit on your boutique's books. We uncovered systematic wire fraud, false tax reporting, and illegal credit applications where you forged Dad's signature to secure emergency funds. Chloe let out a terrified screech, turning to our father with frantic tears streaming down her face. Dad, tell her she's lying. Tell her she can't do this. My father couldn't speak. His hands trembled so violently that he nearly knocked over his champagne glass. I snapped the folder shut with a loud, sharp thud that resonated like a gunshot through the room. "I am rejecting this loan guarantee," I said, my tone as cold as steel. "Furthermore, as the primary lien holder, I am initiating an immediate total asset freeze on Chloe's boutique and issuing a formal demand for full payment of the defaulted mortgage by 9 a.m. tomorrow. You tried to trap me into absorbing your ruin, but you forgot one tiny detail. I own the board, I own the debt, and I own your future." The fallout from that single evening was swift, brutal, and absolute. True to my word, at exactly 9 a.m. the following morning, my legal team activated the asset freeze and filed formal foreclosure notices. Without my capital to bail them out, the fragile house of cards my family had spent 6 years building completely disintegrated within weeks. Faced with massive, undeniable evidence of corporate wire fraud and tax evasion uncovered by my forensic audit, Chloe had zero leverage left. To avoid active criminal prosecution and potential prison time, she was forced to sign over her boutique's remaining inventory and liquidate all her personal assets, including her luxury car and designer wardrobe. The golden child who had once smirked at me from the warm hallway was stripped of her lavish titles and forced to take a low-paying, entry-level retail job just to cover her basic living expenses. My parents fared no better. With the secondary mortgage defaulted and their retirement savings completely drained from years of enabling Chloe's lifestyle, they were forced to put the family home up for emergency liquidation. The very house where they had shoved a trash bag into my chest and locked the door behind me was sold at a massive loss to settle their compounding debts. They were forced to downsize into a cramped, noisy 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city, finally facing the harsh reality of the unearned entitlement they had cultivated. For weeks, my phone was flooded with frantic, weeping voicemails from my mother, begging for forgiveness and claiming they had always loved me. But I knew the truth. Their sudden remorse wasn't born out of genuine love or regret for throwing an 18-year-old girl out into the rain. It was born out of the crushing weight of their own self-inflicted financial ruin. I never answered a single call. I permanently blocked their numbers, severed every remaining legal tie, and closed that chapter of my life forever. Today, as I stand in my sunlit penthouse office overlooking the city skyline, a profound sense of peace washes over me. Looking back, being thrown out on my 18th birthday with nothing but a trash bag wasn't the tragedy that destroyed my life. It was the catalyst that set me free. It taught me that real strength isn't about letting toxic people step on you to keep the peace. It's about having the courage to build your own foundation and walk away when they show you who they truly are. Now, I'm curious about all of you who have followed my journey until the very end. What would you have done if you were standing in my shoes? Would you have signed that loan guarantee to save your family, or would you have let the trap snap shut just like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to mention the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached across the world.